What is up, crew? It's your boy Kaycem, and today we're going to be talking about how to draw the face like a pro. We're going to be going over things like the structure of the face, some of the differences in the facial features, as well as the good old anatomy that you guys might be looking to grab. All right, and if it's your first time here, my name is Kaycem. I'm a Filipino art streamer here on Twitch. I teach everything from anatomy, gesture, perspective, and all things related to character design, and I also currently work full-time in the animation industry for the studio that made Castlevania. So if you guys are interested in some free art education or my dog who is sleeping over there, make sure you follow on Twitch, subscribe on YouTube, and with that being said, let's get started on today's video. So if you guys were not here in the previous streams, we covered a lot of different topics, but on today's stream, what I wanted to talk primarily with you guys was we're going to go over some of the facial features again, but I really wanted to go over the idea here that different faces will have different facial features, and even in the skeletal and muscular anatomy, you're going to see some variances there, whether it's different ethnicities or even just different genders, male versus female. We're going to be talking a little bit about that today. So one of the main things I'm looking for whenever I'm drawing a head is, one, I'm looking for the general volume there, so kind of where the volume of the head's going to be, and then also kind of the angle of the head first. So these are kind of the general things I'm looking for first. So we're going to be establishing where the character is looking. So they're going to be looking a little bit this way, right? So they're going to be going kind of facing, kind of looking a little bit forward, but a little to the left. And then the other thing I'm looking for also is where's that eye level. So the eye level is going to be somewhere around here, and this will dictate how much head tilting is going on there. And so this is again just my rough kind of structure there for the head. And keep in mind that even though this is a flat object right here, I'm still considering a lot of the volume and the form of the head here. So there's going to be a side plane here. I'm just not drawing it, but you could imagine there's a side plane there. Right, there's the zygomatic bone and the cheekbone there kind of going this way, right? And so there's always structure there. So it's not just I'm drawing a circle and then a triangle for the chin. I'm actually thinking about the volume that's going on here with the face. So we're looking for some of these planar features here of the face to make sure that we get a good understanding of that when we actually draw it ourselves, right? And then we'll talk a little bit of some of these stylizations of the face as well. So we'll do some of that too. But let me actually lower these reference images, the opacity a little bit here, so I can show you guys what I mean by some of these planes and shapes and stuff. So yeah. What's a triangle on a face? Oh, you want to learn about the triangle technique? Okay, so I have a longer YouTube video for that. Okay, so you can watch the longer video for that, but if you guys want to hear about the technique right now, basically the TLDR is it's something I made called the Illuminati triangle technique. A few other artists have different names for it, but basically the idea here is you take the ends of the brows, okay, ends of the eyes, ends of the nose, and if you actually line these up right here, take a look at that, it actually makes a triangular shape there that's really good for proportions. You can use it for all types of faces, all types of angles as well. Look at that. Look how easily that applies. And what's really cool about this technique is not only does it actually help you with getting a good proportion for your character, it also is cool with stylization because you can do a long triangle for a longer face. You can do a wide triangle for a wider face for a more stylized look. But here's really the best part about it. If you take this end, technically you actually already know, watch this. See, by finding the ends here like this, so this is where that end is a little bit further here, right? You can actually find the distance of the eyes right here from using this triangle technique. And then all you have to do is place here the top of the head, the bottom of the head, halfway mark, and that's where you place the vertical section of your eyes too. So if you guys want to see that video on YouTube, I have a longer video explaining that with the demo, but this is kind of like that quick TLDR there of how to utilize this technique. And again, you can use it for a lot of different angles. It's a really easy technique just to kind of double check your proportions as well. Make sure that your character's faces, line up and whatnot. Yeah, it's the Illuminati triangle technique. I popularized that technique here on Twitch, I think. I don't know if anyone else is calling it Illuminati triangle technique, but I'm calling it that. Yeah, Thank you guys. Appreciate that. Yeah, I've been slowly trying to grow more on YouTube. My goal is to try to put out 2 to 4 videos, 2 to 5 videos a week. We already put one out yesterday, actually, so you guys can check that one out. And then we'll be coming out with another one tomorrow, I believe. Tomorrow at 8 a.m. Yeah. PST. I do a lot of non-human characters, even non-animals. Does the triangle work for any face for a character? That's a good question. I think so. The cool thing about the triangle technique is it's more of a stylistic and a shape design choice, but it also applies to it's basically a way to kind of simplify the human proportions. And so I think depending on what you're trying to go for, like let's say you're trying to make humanoid characters and stuff, or like a robot character, it could potentially still apply, but I would say definitely it's more for like human characters than it would be for maybe something that's non-human, even animalistic. I think they might have different proportions, but I don't know. I've actually never tried. That's a good question. One of these days we will try it out. One of the best tips I ever received was incredibly simple, but it's to draw what you see, not what you think you see. This is great advice for realistic art, but how do you think it could apply compared to a style more like this that is a lot more imaginative? Draw what you see and not what you think you see. Yeah, so I think, I mean, so for even stuff that is stylized like this, that's a great question, by the way. I think when I hear that and when I've been told that, it's not necessarily to just draw kind of everything and like copy it out. In my mind, when I hear draw what you see, it's about taking away the general abstractions and general conceptions that we have about drawing a face, and then from there looking instead at what we're actually seeing with the structure and form. So here's a good example of that. When I first learned how to draw, I used to grab all these how to draw manga books, right? From Christopher Hart, how to draw manga. And one of the things that they would always say is, you want to draw a head, draw a circle, right? And then from that circle, draw a line, draw a little triangle, and here's your anime head face, right? But the reality of it is that this is just a symbol of a face. This is not necessarily how the actual structure of the face works, right? If you want to draw a face, instead, it's much better to actually see and visualize the 3D form that's happening in the face, or even if this round shape right here, right? We have this round sphere. The sphere has volume. The sphere has a center line like this, and then this has planes on the face for where the jawbone and all of that stuff kind of go in, right? And so when I hear and think about stuff like, you know, draw what you see, it's less about copying exactly what you see and more about understanding what it is that you're drawing and then applying that, as opposed to drawing what the symbol of that is, right? So the head, if you were to abstract it, yeah, it could just be a circle and a triangle. But if you wanted to draw it from different angles, let's say you wanted to draw the head, here's some examples. Let's say you want to draw the head at this angle, looking upwards, right? Or you wanted to draw the head at a certain view, then that circle and triangle technique starts to lose its magic, right? Because it now becomes more of a graphic symbol of a head and less of the actual structure of the head. And so usually that's what I think when I hear someone say, you know, draw what you see and not what you think you see. Because I think sometimes because we don't know what we see, we're going to start to, you know, put our own little simplifications on it that don't necessarily align with the actual structure and align with what's actually happening. But yeah, that's a very good question, actually. I don't think I've gotten that question before. So let's talk a little bit about the frontal bone here, because I think one of the interesting things about the anatomy is going to be really understanding where in the human body, where the anatomy is really going to be different. I think one of the key things to really study is going to be the frontal bone here of the skull. So I'm just going to draw a quick skull here for you guys, but I'm only going to draw the frontal bone portion here. So the portion that is going to be comprised of the brow ridge and the forehead. All right. So it's really going to be that structure there. And this actually goes on a little bit lower here. Yeah, so let's go ahead and do that, and I'll just talk to you guys a bit about that. And then the reason why this is important is because if you can understand the brow ridge, this is actually one of the key components that really differentiate characters, whether it's a male character, female character, ethnically, all these types of things. And there's so many different types, right? So you have someone with maybe a more prominent brow ridge versus somebody who has a more shallow depth there. And so understanding this area of the head, especially if you guys are trying to really push your form and get a little bit more, realism, which you might not be for those of you who are more of the stylized anime style, which is, what kind of what I do. It's still beneficial to understand these things because it'll allow you to make the simplifications that you need. Okay, so you can kind of see here what I'm doing is I'm just kind of placing in some of the volume. And I'm trying to simplify, all right? So again, I don't want to give you guys too much kind of crazy details here, but I really want to just simplify here what that structure even looks like if we were to kind of just break down the forms and the planes. And then, I know this looks kind of crazy, but just trust me on this one, okay? So this is, again, that frontal bone, okay? The frontal bone here of the head. It's a pretty good structure to kind of keep in mind. It'll really change depending on the structure of the head, and you can kind of imagine it. I'll do it really quick, but you can kind of imagine this structure here. So you can really think about this top portion of the head here kind of just wrapping back like this, the back of the head there. All right, so just keep that in mind. But really, it's going to be something like this of this structure, right? Can the bootcamp apply to someone who's never drawn like myself? I can barely draw stick figures, but I want to get into it. Yes, I think so. And I think the reason why is because part of what I talk about all the time with my bootcamps is I talk a lot about some of the simple shapes first, always talking about the general structures and all of that stuff. But then it also eventually we get into the more heavier stuff like anatomy, which is more for the people who want more of an advanced conversation, right? But we talk about stuff. I'll show you guys really quick. Kind of like right here where I show you guys, hey, if you're still a beginner, these are some of the things I would recommend, right? Focusing on the general shapes first. And then from those general shapes, drawing in some of the structure and all of that stuff. So like something like this, right? Where I say like, hey, if you want to draw a box, you can start off with drawing a box first and then draw the head in a certain way like that. So I say that I think I try to do this thing in my boot camps where I try to give you guys a broad spectrum. So for those of you who are still beginners, you can still, follow along. And then for those of you who are more advanced, here are ways that you can push your drawings a little bit further, right? Challenge yourself more than maybe what you've already been doing and stuff. Hopefully that helps answer your question. Cool going on. But okay, there you go. So that's the drawing there. Let's move in now to another drawing. We'll do this female character here. And let me move a few things, okay? Yeah, so for this one right here, I'm going to start off nice and simple. We're going to be just drawing out the general structure of the face first. And I don't usually overcommit to any particular details just yet. I'm just kind of focusing primarily on laying out some of the face shape and stuff. So you can kind of see here, we're just laying out the structure of the face, right? Not going super crazy there and committing to any of the lines. And yeah, we're just having we're just having fun with it and stuff. Maybe we'll apply some of the Illuminati triangle technique here. So let's kind of do some of that as well. Here, what we'll do is I'll kind of find that line there, and this will help me figure out where to place that nose that we talked about earlier, right? So placing in that triangle right there, this will kind of give me an idea. Let's kind of bridge that gap of the nose right there, and maybe we'll do a more subtle nose, kind of like this. I struggle so much with drawing heads. Well, that's perfect. This is this is definitely the stream where we do nothing but draw heads right now. That's all we're doing today. Head drawings all day, every day, living and breathing, drawing the heads. Okay, so let's go ahead and erase these lines that we have here, these guidelines. Just kind of a rough guideline that I had there. Little volume for the eyes, just fill those in and stuff, and then I think we'll be good. I mean, we'll draw more stuff. Today is nothing but heads, okay? We'll be drawing more things other than heads in the future, yes. Let's see here. I'm still new around. Do you generally have your community that can study at the same time when you, Kaycem, then share the study they did along in a specific channel maybe? Do you generally have your community that can study at the same time than you saw and then share? Oh yeah, I mean, are you saying like you would want to have that? Yeah, so I always give you guys the worksheets and stuff. So if you guys want to follow along, those are always available on my Discord channel. And then if you want to post it, you can post it in the same channel. You can post it in ArtShare. That's up to you guys. I don't tell you guys like, hey, you have to follow along today kind of thing and draw whatever I'm drawing, or, you know, if you guys want to do that, you can definitely do that. It's an option for sure, but I'm not going to force anyone to be like, hey, you're watching my stream, you got to draw today. You know, like don't not draw kind of thing. But if you want to do it, yeah, heck yeah. That's actually super cool. I'd love to see what you guys make, what you guys draw for your studies and stuff, you know. But yeah, so for this one here, I think one of the main differences you're going to see with the forehead is you're going to notice how his forehead's a little bit more prominent. So notice how we have a little bit of sharpness that we added there to the angle of the head. But for her, it's a lot more about roundness with the form. So really her forehead's going to be a little different, right? And I think these subtle details that we do, that we add to our illustrations, I think is really what's going to help make it come to life and feel a little bit more organic. So if you've ever maybe struggled with drawing female characters or male characters and that kind of stuff, really a great way to overcome that is to understand what makes you know, what are some of the generalizations of the female head versus maybe the male head, and all of that. So I definitely recommend practicing those kind of things. But yeah, hopefully today's stream is helpful. I wanted to do more I wanted to do more example drawings today because I felt like yesterday we did do a lot of skeletons, or not yesterday, 2 days ago we drew a lot of like skeletons and stuff like that, a lot of the anatomy and forms. And so today I was like, you know, let's kind of change it up a little bit. Let's draw more of the heads today, and then we'll talk about the structure and all of that stuff afterwards if we have time, which I think we do have time for, at least to draw like 2 heads today. All right, but anyways, guys, going back here for this one, I think one of the main things that I wanted to focus on with you guys for this one was primarily just talking about the structure of the head, right? So we talked a little bit about that. And I think for this one right here, I wanted to primarily just talk about, I think I chose this one because I wanted to highlight some of the general angles here and talk about the differences between something like a male forehead versus a female forehead, right? Kaycem is wearing the programmer socks, confirmed. What the heck is the programmer socks? I don't know what that is. Let's talk a little bit about the eyes and stuff too, because I think eyes are going to be an important one. How many of you guys in the chat struggle with eyes? Put an F in the chat if you've ever struggled with eyes before. We can, if that's the case, I can talk a little bit more about eyes today. Do you guys want me to talk about the anatomy a little bit more of the eyes? Let's talk a bit about faces and the structure of the face. All right. So when it comes to the anatomy of the eyes here, we're going to focus primarily on this section right here. So let me just first of all, imagine if we were going to cut out the contour of this section right here. All right. So that's kind of what we're going to do right here. And let's talk about some of the interesting kind of plane features here. So one of the first things I want to call out is underneath the eyes, right? So let's talk about the structure of the eyes. So we have here, you have here these planes right here of the zygomatic bone. And those planes are going to be really wrapping around the form here of the eye. And so knowing and understanding how this volume works, I think is going to be really helpful. You don't have to draw it in your illustrations, but I think just being able to visualize it and see it, I think is going to be really helpful. So you can kind of imagine almost a kind of a plane here like this as it wraps back there on the structure of the face, right? So there's like some planes right there of the cheekbones and stuff. And then we have here maybe some planes underneath the eyes as well too. So underneath that eyelid or underneath the eyebrow right here, there's going to be kind of a more of a plane that kind of wraps in into the brow. And so understanding some of these contours will become really helpful for establishing structure in the face. And then here also underneath the brow again and kind of curving into the socket right here. This right here is going to be the kind of the contour or the curvature there of the eye socket from the skull, primarily talking about the connections between the frontal bone, the nasal bone, and the maxilla here, and also the zygomatic. These components will actually create the eye socket that you're seeing here, and that's going to kind of follow this inner contour, this kind of tube-like structure as it kind of goes in here and creates some of that shape, right? So again, I'm just showing you guys how I visualize these kind of forms and these structures. Obviously, when I drew these, I'm not drawing out all these crazy lines and stuff. But understanding the planes can really help out a lot, because next, when you go in here and let's say we're going to draw now the eyeball and stuff, the eyeball itself, as you can kind of see, really does kind of sit in. It really does kind of sit in this section right here of the eye, and then that will just kind of get comprised or get overlapped here by all these other features that we have so far. And then let me do. How should we do this? I'll do some more on the other side real quick. A few contours on the other side. Kaycem, you have maybe more interested in anatomy. Thank you. I'm glad to hear. And yeah, again, I'm trying to make this as simple as I can without overwhelming you guys, because I think this stuff can get really heavy really fast, right? You guys can imagine. Those shape boxes look something like mesh shapes from Blender. Yeah. So I'm trying to show you guys some mesh shapes, because I think when you see the cross contours for these things, for these faces, I think it can really help you out a lot with being able to visualize the shape and the angle and all of that stuff. So yeah, I think a great way to think about it is if you guys want to like grab like Blender and just practice some of the forms there, I think that can be a really great way to start understanding that. But again, you don't have to. It's not necessary. I think just being able to visualize some of the primitive stuff is going to be really good there. So you can kind of imagine what we're doing right now with all of that. And then let's kind of talk about the actual eyeball itself too. So this is again the general structure of the eye, right? Let's do a little bit more. Maybe we'll add a little bit more here for the plane. Okay, but anyways, you can kind of start seeing where all the volume and all the forms are. But let's actually kind of zoom in a little bit here and talk about the eyeball itself, because I think that'll be a good one to focus on. And then after that, I think we'll move on to one more drawing today, and I think that'll be hefty. That'll be a good amount of content that we're covering here. Art Daddy throwing out facts. Who? Thank you for the follows. El Dragon Boilano. Appreciate that. There's some cool glasses. Yeah, the mesh glasses out here, you know? Good old mesh glasses. Easy peasy. Okay. But let's talk a little bit about maybe the eyelids as well. And then after that, we'll draw this face. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Is there anything else I want to call out for this one, for the eyes? I think something, if there's anything to also consider that might be valuable as well, is considering how you might have with a male character, right? You might have something that's a little bit more prominent for your brow ridge, right? So male characters might have something like this with their brow ridge where it's really diagonal in shape. You can really see a lot of the form going in this way. So here's like an example of that. Whereas maybe with a female character, and let me just finish off here with the eyes. This is the brow ridge here. With a female character, you might have more of a rounder forehead here, like this, right? With a much more subtle kind of subtle gradation there with the nose and the brows. And so sometimes having these little small details can really go a long way for quickly establishing whether or not your character is male or female. And again, this is not necessarily to say that all males will have a prominent brow ridge or all females will have a round brow ridge, but this is let me do it like this so you guys can see the Okay, does that help? Let me know if that made any sense. Yeah, every detail is important, especially as you start doing something like the anime style, where you already have you have a lot less lines than maybe a more realistic style, right? So again, this is mostly focused on the brow ridge today, but we'll get into the other features as well too. Thank you for the follows today, guys. Kitty Leska and Lucieth. Appreciate that. So let me write this down as brow ridge. Male, female, right? And again, these are generalizations, right? Generalizations. So this might not always hold true for everything, but you can start there as a baseline, and then hopefully from there, start pushing more and more of the detail and stuff. The more I look at her, the more she kind of reminds me of what's that one actor who played Queen's Gambit, the Queen's Gambit girl. I don't know the name of the actress, but she kind of looks like that. I feel like I just need to change her cheekbones a little bit. Maybe give her more prominent cheekbones and then give her a little bit bigger eyes. And I think that would be that actress from there. Anya. Yeah, Anya. She's cool. All right, let's do one more. Okay, but here you go. Here's that rough face that we're going to do for this girl here. Let me actually make her face a little bit bigger. So I'm trying to do a lot of these from scratch with you guys to kind of show you how I structure drawing faces and stuff. And again, a lot of what I do is a simplified face first. Then I'll go in, I'll frame the head how I want to frame the head. I'll try to find the eye line of where I want the eyes to be. So that way it'll help kind of dictate the angle and stuff that we're working with. And then I'm going to go in and kind of shape out the rest of the face before I go into jumping in on like maybe some of the major details. For this character right here, it looks like she's kind of maybe pursing her lips a little bit. Maybe not actually. I'll do it really quick. Just a quick demo. Okay, quick like 2-minute sketch, right? You take the same angle of this girl now, but now we're going to have her looking upwards like this. If you can draw this primitive shape here like that, place in the ears. Let's go ahead and follow the hair curve right there. So the hair goes down this way behind the ear, tucks back. I changed her hair so that it kind of fans out a little bit. I don't know what's going on the other side, so I'm going to have to make that up a little bit. But let's just assume it's the same kind of structure, right? You can do this. If you can do this rough sketch, you can then polish this rough sketch up. And then from that rough sketch, you do that. And then maybe we'll change it up a little bit for another pose. And so it's always about understanding the basic primitive stuff first, and then being more flexible enough to change that up and stuff. But yeah, hopefully that was helpful to see. I know that the whole reference thing can be can be dangerous. Okay, I've been there. This is why I always call you guys out. People are like, Kaycem, why do you always call us out, man? Why do you do this to us? It's because I've been there, and I wish somebody called me out for it, but no one was. You know, there wasn't anybody I was watching that was telling me like, hey, you know how you like to hide your hands behind your drawings, or you like to cover one of the eyes whenever you're drawing characters and whenever you're struggling eyes? How about you learn today how to draw some hands? You know, it's always easier to just avoid those problems and say like, yeah, I could draw this, or maybe not. Maybe I could just skip it. Easy peasy. I'll figure it out another day. For this drawing, I'm just going to hide the hands, right? I'm sure you guys have done that before. I'm going to go hide the eyes real quick. I'm only going to draw one eye. Here's a cool little trick that I've been doing for work, which I really like actually, is I like to go in and I like to fill out the pupils first, just kind of solid filling out the eyes are here. And then from there afterwards, I'll go into actually figuring out how I want the pupils to work, or is it the pupils, the black inner part there with the highlights and everything else. So I always try to save that for later, because I find that doing all the details right away sometimes can be overwhelming. And so abstracting that away is, I think, a really good, easy thing to kind of start doing before you jump into all the crazy details, which is what I used to do, you know? But all right, let me give a quick intro or about myself here for those of you guys who are watching from YouTube. Welcome in, guys. My name is Kaycem. I am a Filipino art streamer here on Twitch, and I teach everything from anatomy, gesture, perspective, and all the things related to character design. And I also currently work for the animation industry for the studio that made Castlevania. Right now, I'm prepping to work as a character designer for shows like Castlevania, Legend of Korra, and Invincible. So if you guys are watching from YouTube, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks again. Make sure you like, subscribe, all of that stuff, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. All right, peace.